Every single person I have spoken to as far as this topic is concerned never thought that this would be their lives. It's an important topic to start including in our marriage counseling, our marriage counseling syllabuses. So, but the real question is, can marriages survive the challenges of long distance? Hello and welcome to Sacred Seasons with Fumi. If today is your first time on this channel, you're very welcome. I hope you like it here. And if you are a returning subscriber, hello, it's so good to see you back here. So we started a series on long distance marriage, and today we're going to continue. We'll take that conversation further. So what we're doing today is what I'm going to call, we're going backwards to move forward. In our last video, we established that long distance marriage is being married but living single. Basically what it means is married couples live geographically apart even though they are still married and still emotionally connected or still committed to each other. Historically, long distance marriage definitely has its roots in history. It didn't just start. It's not a completely new phenomenon. You'll be surprised to see that, or to know that even in the Bible days, there were insinuations of long distance marriage. And yes, I went back to check for you. If I don't do it, who will? So, I know that in my earlier video, I also mentioned Adam and Eve, in the sense that originally marriage is meant to be, of course, like we all know, ideally a man and a woman in the same geographical location. And I use the example of Adam and Eve in the sense that God created them and placed them in the same garden. He didn't place them in different gardens or in different parts of, the Garden of Eden. Also, you would see in scripture, many couples living together. However, you would also see certain stories or certain spiritual figures in the Bible that lived apart as married couples. Number one on my list is Moses. Yes, so after the situation in Egypt, Moses sent his wife Zipporah and 2 sons back to his father-in-law Jethro. And we know that for a long time they weren't together because the Bible recorded when Jethro brought Zipporah and the boys back to Moses. So yes, our father Moses had experienced long distance marriage. And in those days, the reasons for long distance marriage, like we see in the case of Moses, was his assignment, missionary journey. But we had other people that had to endure long distance marriage because of war or even exile. A very good example would be David. David was married to Saul's daughter Michal. That's her name. And because he was running for his life when Saul wanted to off him, he ran, and he was staying in the wilderness, he stayed in the caves and all of that. And unfortunately, he got hit by the short end of the stick of long distance marriage, a very rare one at that. Because before David came back or anything, Saul had given Michal out in marriage to someone completely different. Another person, when speaking about long distance marriage and war, is I think his name is Uzziah. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong. The person, correct me in the comment section, the person that David took his wife, Bathsheba. So when Uzziah was newly married, like fresh married, and he went to war, right? And while he was at war, David kept himself busy with his wife. Now, that's also somebody that we see in scripture that actually experienced long distance marriage. Now, if we go on and on, I'm sure if you go, you can search as well. Tell me if you find any other, couples in the Bible that, did marriage long distance. Initially, I thought that Peter did marriage long distance, but later I realized that he didn't, because somewhere, I think it's 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 5, Paul was speaking to the Corinthian church and was telling them that, do we not have a right to bring our believing wives like the other apostles did? And he mentioned Peter. So with that, I knew that Peter took his wife along. However, I cannot say if there was any time of long distance, all the time they were following Jesus. There possibly was, but at least I cannot prove that. So yes, so even down to Bible days, what I was trying to say is the fact that people had done long distance marriage even back then. So it's not a completely new phenomenon. And then coming back to more recent history, at least if we can remember, maybe for me, my grandparents, for instance, long distance marriage, I would say, became more common, but not as common as we have it today, but at least much more than the Bible times. But even at that, you would see that it wasn't as common as we have it now. And the reason is very simple. Then, traditionally, especially in Africa, I don't know about Asia and the other parts of the world, I feel like Asia will be a lot more close to Africa and other developing countries, third world countries, or wherever it is that we are called. But anyways, you'd see that a lot of times traditionally the men go to work and the women stay at home to nurture the kids. So because of that, you hardly have you of course you had women that were doing things, maybe business or trade, all those kind of things, but you didn't really have as many women as we have today who are actually chasing career and doing other things. So many women were housewives, in those days. And the example I was making, like my granddad was transferred a lot from different, within different states in Nigeria because of his job. And just to give an evidence for what I'm saying, my grandmom, in my case, followed him everywhere that he went because she didn't have like a corporate job, if I would put it like that. She did a couple of businesses here and there, but she just follows wherever he goes, sets up something. If it's time to pack, she packs up again and then she goes. And I feel like that was what happened a lot more then. So you wouldn't really have as much as you have now. If you have someone, if you know the history of your family, grandparents, please let me know if your grandparents did long distance marriage or your parents did long distance marriage back in the 60s, 70s, and even 80s. And the world has changed with globalization. The world has changed with immigration and all, things have really changed. And because of globalization, marriage has changed. Because of globalization, long distance marriage has changed. And you'll be wondering, what's the impact? What has globalization got to do with this? A lot of things have happened. Opportunities are global. Marriages are mobile. Families have changed. Economies are unstable. So different things are happening. And because of that, families are then forced to make certain decisions that they didn't have to make some 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. So because of that, we have different examples that you see. I've heard all kinds of things that have led people to live separately. Of course, we know of military people, like military men and military women, who have to go to their different posting, and for that reason, one of the spouse will have to stay back, mostly the woman, but in the case of military women, I would assume of women, I would assume the men as well will have to stay back and hold fort at home. We have immigration. I mean, immigration is one of the biggest influencers of long distance marriages today. People are moving, like you have medical professionals moving from place to place. And a lot of times we seem to think, oh, this happens only in from developing countries to developed countries, but the truth is that it happens everywhere. Yes, it might happen more with people moving because you're looking for greener pastures. However, I'm seeing people moving from developed countries to the other developed countries. People are moving from United Kingdom to Canada to America. People are moving from America to Australia. As in, it's just everywhere. You have engineers getting jobs, across the sea. You have oil and gas workers working onshore, offshore. You have people studying internationally where, you're trying to go and get some things done, and you need some kind of certifications, or you need some certain kinds of degrees, and you have to go and be apart from your family for a very long time. So long distance marriage has become very, very common. It is no longer rare. It is one of the major hidden realities of modern day marriage. And that's the reason why I'm having this conversation, because I believe that this conversation needs to be had, because it's a lot more common. We cannot be quiet and act like it doesn't exist, because if we don't put the searchlight on long distance marriage, we will not be able to find solutions to the challenges of long distance marriage. So that's why I believe it's a very important topic that we should start discussing in our groups. It's an important topic to start including in our marriage counseling. When we have marriage counseling, our marriage counseling syllabuses. I was speaking to someone, and that's one thing she said that really struck me. And I was wondering, yeah, really, I don't think that I had that, even despite the fact that when I was getting married, it was obvious that my marriage was going to be long distance. I'm not sure there was a topic that actually handled that in marriage counseling. So yes, if you are if you have access to marriage counseling curriculums and all of that, maybe in a church or even professionally, whatever it is, what do you people have for people, that would live long distance? And it's not even about people that will live long distance, because sometimes you don't even know that this would be your life. In fact, a lot of the people, let me say a lot, every single person I have spoken to as far as this topic is concerned never thought that this would be their life. And that's why I also feel like we should also empathize a lot, and just have these conversations with people with a lot of compassion, because many people given an option will not choose this, if you get what I mean, in the sense that they would rather have it any other way, because there's that tendency to be judgmental and feel like, oh, the way you lay your bed, that's the way you lie on it. You chose long distance, so deal with it. I feel we need to be a lot more compassionate. I was speaking, I think it was my last video, my auntie left a comment on it, and she said survival is the culprit. And I totally agree. There are lots of times that people will not have considered this. But the economy is, dwindling. And the economy is not just in certain parts. The world economies are dwindling. Families need to survive. And as a result, people then have to make this very, very, very difficult decision. And, statistics has a lot to say about long distance marriage. A lot. And from statistics, it's showing that every day, global migrations are increasing. What does that mean? That also means a lot more people will be moving out of their stations or wherever it is that they are, their countries, their states. And what does that mean for marriages? It also means that we will have more and more long distance marriages. It is a reality that, unfortunately, in my opinion, has come to stay. And statistics also says that, distance is not necessarily the real killer of marriages when it comes to long distance marriage. However, distance is a culprit as well, in the sense that some of these other reasons, there have to be other things. There are things that distance easily causes. For example, you have things like loneliness, emotional strain, you have resentment, you have all these other things that come together, because you people, the couples are not physically in the same location. So I would say, to be honest, I wish this was not the case, but this is the reality that we have to live with. So the real question is not whether or not long distance marriage is ideal, because the obvious answer is no, at least from everyone I've spoken to. I know I've read about people that think it is ideal, but honestly, I've not even spoken to anybody. In fact, when I was talking to someone, she told me that she does not believe that anybody that is truly living the reality of long distance marriage will agree that it is ideal, or will agree that it's doing their marriage some good. She said it is only maybe people looking from outside. And somehow I share that sentiment as well. But for the sake of the fact that nothing is absolute, I will leave that tiny chance that there are people out there that truly believe that long distance marriage is ideal. But for the purpose of this video, like I said, it is not ideal. So, but the real question is, can marriages survive the challenges of long distance? And those are the questions that we need to answer. If you're interested in that answer, I'll invite you to subscribe to this channel, like this channel, turn on the notification bell for this channel, so that the next time we have another video like this, you will be informed as we continue on this conversation of long distance marriage. I hope you've had a lovely time here, because I've had a lovely time talking to you about this. See you in the next video.